People look at the Berkshire Hathaway empire today, and they see hundreds of billions of dollars. They see the massive acquisitions, the compounding returns, and the headlines in the financial newspapers. When they look at my life, they are almost always searching for the big move. They want to know about that one single day where I made a brilliant high-stakes trade that made me a billionaire. They want the Hollywood movie version of wealth. They imagine a room full of people screaming at computer screens, pulling off a secret master plan at the exact right second to beat the market. But let me tell you a secret that most people simply do not want to hear. The Hollywood version of wealth is a complete biological illusion. Real wealth is not built in a single day of brilliant action. Real wealth is incredibly, almost painfully boring. If you want to understand how financial empires are actually built and how they are destroyed, you have to look at the physics of nature. When people think about a house collapsing, they usually think about a hurricane. They picture a massive, violent storm coming in from the ocean and blowing the roof off in 10 seconds. In the financial world, the hurricane is a massive stock market crash, a terrible real estate investment, or a risky bet on a startup that goes to absolute zero. In the financial world, the hurricane is a massive stock market crash, a terrible real estate investment, or a risky bet on a startup that goes to absolute zero. Everyone is terrified of the hurricane, but hurricanes are incredibly rare. The thing that actually destroys most houses in this country is completely invisible. It is the termites. Termites do not make any noise. They do not announce their arrival. They just sit in the dark, chewing on the wooden foundation of a house, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, one tiny microscopic bite at a time. For years, you do not even know they are there. The house looks perfectly fine from the outside, but inside the structural integrity is being slowly devoured. And then one day, the entire structure silently collapses under its own weight. Your daily habits are the termites of your financial life. Most people are poor, not because they got hit by a massive financial hurricane, but because they have 1,000 negative termites chewing away at their capital and their cognitive focus every single day. The expensive daily coffee you do not need. The 3 hours spent mindlessly scrolling on social media. The constant burning need to buy new things just to impress neighbors who do not even care about you. These tiny actions seem completely harmless in the moment. They feel like nothing, but compounded over 10, 20, or 30 years, they will guarantee a life of absolute financial slavery. But here is the beautiful part about this universal law. You can use this exact same physical momentum to build an empire. You can breed positive termites. You can adopt tiny, invisible habits that quietly build the foundation of an impenetrable fortress. Over the last 70 years, I did not make thousands of brilliant macroeconomic predictions. I did not invent a new technology. I simply practiced a few tiny habits every single day. These habits were not exciting. They did not make me look cool or sophisticated. In fact, most people on Wall Street thought my habits were incredibly strange and hopelessly outdated. But I did them on Monday, and I did them on Tuesday, and I did them every single day for decades. And eventually those tiny, boring, invisible habits compounded into a mountain of wealth that no economic crisis can ever take away. Today, I am going to share 5 of those tiny habits with you. I must warn you before we begin. When you hear these habits, your fragile human ego is going to immediately reject them. Your brain is going to tell you that these actions are far too small to possibly make a difference. Your brain will demand a more complex, exciting, and risky strategy. You must ignore that primitive voice. If you are ready to stop looking for the magic lottery ticket, if you are ready to stop waiting for the big move and start building your foundation, pay very close attention. Let us begin with the first tiny habit. Habit number 1. I call this the physical manifestation of cognitive humility, or simply the too hard pile. Let us talk about the human ego, specifically the ego of highly intelligent people. When you go through the traditional education system and you graduate from a top university, you are trained to solve incredibly difficult problems. You are explicitly rewarded for complexity. If you write a simple, easy-to-read essay in college, you get a mediocre grade. But if you write a deeply complex philosophical essay using massive words and intricate theories, you get the highest grade in the class. This system completely conditions your brain. It trains you to associate complexity with success and to associate simplicity with stupidity. So these brilliant young men and women graduate, they go to Wall Street or they go to Silicon Valley, and they apply this exact same academic logic to the real game of wealth. They look at a simple, boring business, a business that makes bricks or sells chewing gum or manufactures carpet, and their ego immediately rejects it. They think, this is far too easy. This is completely beneath my massive intellect. I need a challenge. So they go looking for highly theoretical biotechnology companies. They look for complex financial derivatives that require advanced calculus just to read the prospectus. They are deliberately looking for 7-foot fences to jump over simply to prove to themselves and to their colleagues that they are capable of jumping. But here is the absolute unbending truth of capitalism. The market does not care about your academic degree. The market does not award you bonus points for a high degree of difficulty. A dollar earned from a simple, boring, totally predictable business spends exactly the same as a dollar earned from a highly complex, revolutionary technology company. On my desk in Omaha, Nebraska, I have a physical tray. It is a simple wooden box, and it is labeled "Too Hard." Every single morning, I receive dozens of investment proposals, annual reports, and business pitches from all over the world. I sit at my desk, I pick up the first document, and I start reading. If I cannot completely understand exactly how this business makes money, who their actual competitors are, and what the industry will look like in 10 years, within the first 3 minutes of reading, I stop. I do not call a team of Wall Street analysts to explain it to me. I do not build a complex financial spreadsheet to try and figure it out. I do not agonize over what I might be missing. I simply take the document and I drop it into the too hard pile. And then I completely forget about it forever. I move on to the next piece of paper. I ruthlessly, almost violently, filter out complexity. Charlie Munger and I have made billions of dollars simply by looking for 1-foot fences that we can easily step over rather than trying to train ourselves to jump over the 7-foot fences. This tiny habit, the physical act of tossing a piece of paper into a tray, is a massive psychological superpower. It protects you from your own arrogant ego. It forces you to operate strictly within what we call your circle of competence. Knowing the exact boundary of your circle is infinitely more important than the size of the circle itself. Most people are absolutely terrified of looking stupid. If you ask them a complicated question about a new technology or a new financial trend, they will pretend to know the answer. They will use jargon to cover up their ignorance. But true wealth is built by the people who have the psychological strength to look someone dead in the eye and say, I do not understand this. This is too hard for me. I am going to pass. So here is your application for habit number 1. You must build your own too hard pile today. When someone pitches you a new cryptocurrency that you cannot explain to a 5-year-old child, put it in the too hard pile. When a friend asks you to invest in a complicated real estate syndication with a 50-page legal contract, put it in the too hard pile. When you are faced with a career decision that has too many unpredictable moving parts, put it in the too hard pile. Do not feel ashamed. Do not feel inadequate. Your ultimate wealth will not be defined by the complex puzzles you manage to solve. It will be defined entirely by the disastrous mistakes you actively avoid. Embrace the simple. Step over the 1-foot fence. Habit number 2. I call this the invisible compounding machine, or the 500-page rule. Look at the modern world. Look at the average investor today. They are absolutely addicted to noise. They sit in front of 3 computer screens, watching red and green numbers flash by at the speed of light. They refresh their social media feeds every 5 minutes, desperately looking for the latest rumor. They watch financial television networks where men in expensive suits scream about an impending global crisis. They call this doing research. They believe that because they are consuming a massive mountain of data every single day, they are gaining knowledge. They are completely wrong. They are not gaining knowledge. They are burning their cognitive bandwidth on cheap dopamine. They are confusing motion with progress. Let me explain a concept called the half-life of information. Most of the information you consume on the internet has a half-life of about 24 hours. A news headline today will be completely irrelevant by tomorrow afternoon. A hot stock tip on a message board will be utterly worthless by next week. If you feed your brain temporary information, your wealth will be temporary. But there is another type of information that has a half-life of centuries. Human psychology, business history, the fundamental laws of supply and demand. If you feed your brain permanent knowledge, your wealth will become permanent. When people visit my office in Omaha, they are always shocked by what they do not see. There are no computer screens flashing real-time stock prices. There is no television screaming the daily news. It is incredibly quiet. My office is essentially a library. My tiny habit, the single habit that built the intellectual foundation of Berkshire Hathaway, is painfully boring to most people. I sit in a quiet room and I read 500 pages every single day. I read annual reports of companies I have never invested in. I read biographies of men and women who died 100 years ago. I read deep, dense business history. I am not looking for a quick tip on what the market will do next Tuesday. I am looking to understand exactly how the machinery of the world actually operates. People fundamentally misunderstand how reading works. They think reading is like taking a test in high school. They think you read a fact, you memorize it, and you immediately use it to make money the next day. But true knowledge does not work like that. True knowledge is a slow, silent compounding mechanism. When you sit down and read a boring 80-page financial report on a carpet manufacturing company today, it will probably not help you make a single dollar tomorrow. You will put the report away and you will think you wasted your time, but 10 years from now, a completely different opportunity will appear in front of you. And because you read that boring report a decade ago, your brain will subconsciously recognize a pattern. It will connect a dot that nobody else in the room can even see. That is how you build an intellectual moat. You build it quietly, one page at a time, over a period of decades. Most people simply do not have the patience for this. They want a magic pill. They want to listen to a 10-minute audio summary and suddenly become a financial genius. But intensity is an illusion. Consistency is the only thing that actually moves the needle. While the traders in New York are sweating, panicking, and trading frantically based on the morning news cycle, I am sitting quietly in my leather chair, reading a book about the fall of the Roman Empire. So here is your application for habit number 2. You must violently disconnect yourself from the modern noise machine. Stop checking your investment portfolio every 2 hours. Stop reading the endless stream of financial news. Take that exact same amount of anxious energy and redirect it toward permanent knowledge. I want you to dedicate 1 hour every single day to reading something that is completely disconnected from the current news cycle. Read a biography of a great industrialist. Read a book on human behavioral psychology. Do this quietly. Do not tell anyone you are doing it. Do not post about it on the internet. Just sit in the silence and feed the compounding machine in your mind. In 5 years, you will look around the room and you will realize that you are operating on a completely different intellectual plane than everyone else. You will see the matrix while they are still fighting over the noise. Habit number 3. I call this the mastery of the empty room, or the absolute refusal of action bias. Look at the modern professional today. They are terrified of silence. They are absolutely terrified of sitting perfectly still. If you put an average person in an empty room with nothing to do within 3 minutes, they will reach into their pocket and pull out their cellular phone. They demand constant stimulation. They need to feel connected. In the world of behavioral psychology, this is known as action bias. When human beings feel anxious, uncertain, or bored, their primitive brain screams at them to do something, anything. If a stock portfolio drops by 5%, the amateur investor feels a sudden surge of adrenaline. Their action bias kicks in. They feel an overwhelming biological urge to sell a stock, buy a different stock, or fundamentally change their entire financial strategy. They truly believe that motion will somehow save them. The entire corporate world is built on this illusion of motion. If you sit at your desk in a corporate office and just stare out the window, thinking deeply about a complex problem, your manager will walk by and assume you are being lazy. They will demand that you type on a keyboard or send an email or speak loudly in a meeting. Society constantly rewards the appearance of effort. It rarely rewards the actual generation of profound value. Wall Street absolutely loves action bias. The entire global financial system is meticulously designed to make you feel like you need to be doing something every single day. The brokers, the trading platforms, and the financial television anchors, they do not make money when you sit perfectly still. They make money when you move. They get rich on your transaction fees, your taxes, and your panic while your capital slowly bleeds to death. My partner Charlie and I have a completely different approach. We believe that in the game of wealth, doing absolutely nothing is often the most brilliant and profitable action you can possibly take. My tiny habit is incredibly simple, but it is psychologically agonizing for most people. I spend a massive portion of my week sitting in a quiet room, looking at the ceiling, or looking at a blank piece of yellow paper. There is no computer on my desk. There is no telephone ringing. There is no complex financial spreadsheet. I am just sitting and thinking. I do not force a deal just to keep myself busy. I am perfectly comfortable holding tens of billions of dollars in cash, doing absolutely nothing for years at a time. The media will often mock me. They will write articles saying that I have lost my touch. They will say the new economy has passed me by. But I do not let the impatience of the crowd dictate my timeline. I like to think of myself as a patient crocodile in the river. A crocodile does not swim around frantically chasing every tiny fish that passes by. If it did that, it would exhaust itself and quickly starve to death. Instead, the crocodile sits in the mud. It barely breathes. It remains absolutely motionless, sometimes for weeks or even months. It conserves all of its terrifying energy. It is waiting for a massive fat zebra to walk into the water. And when that perfect high probability moment finally arrives, the crocodile strikes with overwhelming speed and absolute conviction. This is exactly how you must treat your capital and your career. You do not need to make 20 financial decisions a year. You do not need to constantly pivot your business model. You do not need to jump from one trending side hustle to another just because your neighbors are doing it. If you cannot sit alone in a room with your own thoughts, you will never be able to hold a great investment through a terrifying market crash. Your anxiety will force you to act, and your premature action will completely destroy your wealth. So here is your assignment for habit number 3. I want you to practice the art of intentional stillness. This week, I want you to find an empty room, leave your phone outside, turn off the music, take a blank piece of paper and a pen. I want you to sit in that chair for 30 minutes and do absolutely nothing. Your brain will beg you to leave the room. It will tell you that you are wasting precious time. It will manufacture fake emergencies to get you to stand up. You must sit through the panic. You must train your biological hardware to be comfortable with absolute stillness. If you can master the empty room, you will immunize yourself against the frantic, wealth-destroying anxiety of the crowd. You will become the crocodile. Habit number 4, I call this the daily ritual of capital respect, or the McDonald's breakfast test. Look at what happens when an average person gets a promotion at work. The moment their paycheck increases, their lifestyle immediately inflates to consume the new income. They buy a larger house. They lease a luxury German automobile. They start wearing expensive watches and eating at high-end restaurants. They call this enjoying the fruits of their labor. They genuinely believe that they are upgrading their life. But let me tell you what they are actually doing. They are voluntarily walking into a prison cell and locking the door behind them. They are forging a set of golden handcuffs. They are trading their ultimate financial freedom for a temporary, fleeting sense of social superiority. Think about the immense psychological burden of owning expensive things. When you buy a massive house, you do not just pay the mortgage. You pay with your cognitive focus. You have to worry about the roof leaking, the lawn being perfectly manicured, and the property taxes doubling. When you buy a luxury car, you stress about someone scratching the paint in a parking lot. Your possessions slowly begin to possess you. They drain your energy. In the financial world, we call this lifestyle creep. It is the silent killer of wealth. It guarantees that no matter how much money you make, you will always remain a slave to your monthly expenses. You will never be able to walk away from a toxic job because you need the paycheck to fund the illusion of wealth you have built for your neighbors. My approach is entirely different. I have a tiny, almost comical daily habit that protects me from this disease. Every morning on my 5-minute drive to the office, I stop at the McDonald's drive-thru. I tell my wife how much exact change to put in the cup holder of my car. When the stock market is down and I am feeling a bit poor, I spend exactly $2.61 on 2 sausage patties. When the market is up and I am feeling prosperous, I might splurge and spend $3.17 on a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit. People hear this story and they laugh. They think it is a cute eccentricity of an old billionaire. They think I am simply being cheap. But it has absolutely nothing to do with being cheap. It has everything to do with a profound, almost religious respect for capital. When you truly understand the mathematics of compound interest, your entire worldview changes. You realize that a single dollar is not just a piece of paper, it is a soldier. Every dollar you save is a tiny soldier that you can send out into the battlefield of the economy. These soldiers work for you 24 hours a day. They never sleep, they never complain, and they recruit more soldiers to join your army. Every time you spend $10 on a luxury coffee you do not need, you are not just wasting $10, you are actively murdering the